a lot of the, best players have either stopped playing or, some of them keep getting stolen by Europe. Not sure why they don't just get their own guys, but whatever.
Time to saddle up, Meteos. Get back in there.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Hello and welcome back to The Dive, Season 9, Episode 39, straight off of the World's Finals, Grand Finals. We didn't eat, we didn't shower, we came immediately here to deliver you the Finals Dive. It was actually crazy. Telecom Wars to the Grand Finals, went to full 5 games, absolute banger. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I'm tired as hell too, I'm not going to lie. And I think we're going to the airport in like 6 hours.
Woo!
So the schedule's pretty gnarly because it's like a 24-hour trip back or something like that. But finals was an absolute banger. I mean, this is the day you look forward to all year, when you're working on LoL Esports. And it's super delivered. A lot of people I know are really nervous about it just being like a mega stomp, and a lot of people like after game one, like, crap, it's going to be a 3-0. It's going to be, if you can't win that game, you can't win any kind of thing. But KT, I thought played really good. They obviously proved they deserved to be in the finals, went to full 5. T1 Magic was magical, and Doran got his first, which was really hype because I'm super happy for him.
I love that he got one little int there at the end too, when it didn't matter anymore. Just inside the base, goes in for a little free death.
He had quite a few that last game. I was getting nervous for him there. But yeah, that was absolute banger of a series. I really enjoyed it. Got to see a lot of cool stuff, and some interesting picks came out as well, as we get with Fearless sometimes. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it was a really fun series. I felt like both teams obviously made quite a few mistakes. Like, it wasn't like perfectly clean or anything, but it was fun for me that neither of the teams kind of crumbled, because I feel like T1 was not looking T1-esque in some of those games. Like, when I think about T1 International, when there's those crazy moments, it's always them that come out on top. But you think about like the Cuz Mundo game where he steals Dragon with a cleaver. You think about like Guma, like fail flashing in the Dragon pit on Yunar, then fail flashing in the blue buff pit, and that potentially costing them a game. You think about these moments, and it's like, that is not what I was expecting to see from T1. It's usually like in that clutch moment, they always come out on top. You think about Guma International, it's always his Varus Q stealing every objective and stuff like this. So when those things start happening, you're like, oh crap, like are they going to be, bouncing back? Like I felt like even on player cams, they look a little bit more stressed, a little bit more nervous than usual. And KT obviously made mistakes too, but I just love that. Yeah, it wasn't like perfectly clean, but both teams would make mistakes. It didn't seem like it caused them to just like back up and play not to lose or anything. Like, they still played confident, played towards their win conditions, which I think makes series super fun to watch. Because to me, like, all of my favorite series are these series where it gets a little bit sloppy, it gets a little bit crazy, because then it's kind of just like these back and forth fights that are super fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, and then going to the full 5 as well adds so much more tension. We have all these late game team fights, making or breaking it. People are already going back and being, all these what ifs. You're talking about game number 1. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what if KT actually did win that game number 1? The dragon fight turned everything. KT had so many early leads. They were stacking dragons. They had the grubs, I believe. They had gold lead, and T1 just like turn it on in that dragon fight and absolutely destroy them. I have to say, Doran's Ambessa was like this heat-seeking missile for Doctum. Like, Doran missed a couple like early ones in lane phase and stuff, but that didn't end up mattering because then he just annihilated the Ashe every single fight after that, it felt like.
Did you catch? I don't know if you guys caught on the cast. We went over on the AD, but I couldn't hear the whole cast. So at that pivotal dragon fight where it was like, I can't remember if they already had 2 dragons or 3 dragons, but they're up 3K, whatever. The fight that turned the game. So Owner goes in, and it looks kind of crazy on this re-engage, and his ult knocked 2 people out of the way of Doran's Ambessa ult and allowed him to ult through onto Doctom, which I was just like, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but like, that shit was crazy, right? Like, that shit was actually crazy, where it's like Doran's coming in on the flank, and instantly, as Owner goes in, he knocks 2 people out of the way of the Ashe, instantaneous Ambessa ult into the middle, Ashe just gets cooked, and they win the fight. And things like that, you're like, God damn, like, that is so crazy if that was intentional and coordinated.
Yeah, that game was really crazy for Doran because I'm definitely someone who's been kind of questioning Doran this year as I've watched T1 because he's definitely good, but he tends to have some, of those moments that stick out. The mistakes he make can be kind of loud. But that game one was really, really impressive. I was just looking at it from Dokdem's point of view, and I was kind of surprised today with his impact in the series because coming off of his Genji series, he was playing so well in almost every situation. He just looked like, just unreal. But today, I don't think he played horribly by any means, but he just didn't really have those moments to stick out. And especially game one, it felt like he was just getting run over. Like Dorn was just a truck and he was a, fly on the windshield. Every single fight, somehow he would have his flash up and some other's just an Ambessa flying in through the entire team and just like taking him out. So it looked rough for him for sure.
Yeah. I was trying to remember the fight that you're talking about because Ambessa Ultimate, it always hits the furthest person. So were the people like behind Dokdem?
They just got kind of like split out, and then he was able to all through.
Okay.
But I was thinking I thought it stopped at the first person.
It goes to the last person.
It's the last,
maybe
yeah.
It didn't really even matter then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it looked sick.
Yeah. I mean, he just it felt like the whole game after that he was just deleting him, and then it felt unwinnable for KT when the whole beginning of the game was like it felt like KT were getting advantage after advantage, and then from that point it was just like T1 win. And then the feeling that you're talking about where people start to feel like after T1 win that game, oh my goodness, is this just going to be a 3-1 for T1? But then for KT to strike back in the next two games and push us the other way, then I felt like I had whiplash and I was kind of feeling the other way. Like, wow, KT has this full momentum now. Like, are T1 going to be the ones to even be able to bounce back? Is this roller coaster story, is that going to like actually get completed? And so... I felt like this series, that's what made this series so fun is there's so many like back and forth moments, and it does come down to a lot of these like little plays where like you're saying, both teams did have errors, both teams also did have big plays. I saw a lot of people were really feeling for BDD, and BDD was definitely playing a lot of these fights really well, like the Casio one where he got that like ult at the very end as well. It was like, oh man, there's so many big moments from this series overall.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like the last two games, though, I will say I felt like T1 had really good drafts. I was finding it hard to believe in the KT comps in those last two games. I felt like T1 did a really good job, which I just found interesting because a lot of the people I felt like talking about T1 coming into the event were worried for T1 late in Peerless. It's like, oh, Faker might not be able to perform on these picks. He ended up, at least going into finals, he had the most unique champions played. I don't know if he maintained that. But he had a ton of different picks. I felt like not banning the Anivia. I know when Vedius and I were watching, we were talking, and I think their 4-5 bans were Hui, Galio. But it's like they blinded Casio. They had this like kind of short range comp with like TK, Trundle, Mord. I just felt like Anivia was like a giga pick, right? And I guess it's always easy in retrospect to be like, you should have banned this, not that, because it did well. But like maybe the Hui would have done just as well or whatever. But I felt like that was really dangerous. And I know people were pretty critical of Faker's previous Anivia game, but this one I thought he played really, really well. Even though I know he did the build.
That's the 5-head. You play one poor game earlier in the tournament to make them lower their guard.
Yeah, so I felt like he was smurfing this one. I felt like I liked their draft a lot more.
Yeah, because we also saw Chovy try the Anivia, and I know that a lot of the outspoken voices about it like really hated the build, going for kind of like the more utility defensive stuff. Faker didn't go for Swifties this time, which him and Chovy had done in the previous games. He went for cooldown boots and then still did the Seraphs, and it looked a lot better. I think there was one play where he ended up getting kind of really ahead of the curve, where I think he stayed top to get a tier 1 turret while everyone else was kind of like messing around bot side. And I think that boost to him kind of helped, because I think his build, if he was even, it would kind of struggle with not doing that much damage. But because he was able to sort of like get ahead of the curve, and then he was able to do enough damage, and then once his like rod upgraded and his Ceres was completed, he ended up being super strong. I will say with that game, I feel like KT could have closed out the series with a better draft in that game, because when I saw T1 pick Callista and then KT answered with Caitlyn, I was like, oh god, that is so bad. And then I was thinking, like, there's no way they go Renata, right? Because if you go Callista, Renata, and they go Caitlyn with some...
I thought they were going to Caitlyn Karma and
any kind of crazy range support. Like, if you just get a winning lane for Caitlyn, this game is completely unplayable. Like, Renata does so bad if she's outranged. She's only good against melee. And then I saw Tom Kench get locked in, and I was like, bro, is he doing this for a skin or something? Like, why the hell would you pick Tom Kench here? That made no sense. Yeah. And then Caitlyn did not look very useful at all. So
and they got cooked in the 2v2 right off the level 2. So
yeah,
it's like not only
completely smashed.
I thought they super trolled that draft too. I was thinking the exact same thing. I see blind Callista, I see Caitlyn as the answer, and I'm like, they could just Caitlyn Karma and probably blast this regardless of what they go. And I was like, well, Carrie is probably going to go, Nautilus or something, knowing that if they go Renata, you get kind of blasted by a lot of these poke supports. Like Renata usually really struggles into those. So I was like, okay, he's going to preemptively go, Nautilus or Leona or whatever. Then he went Renata, and I was like, oh shit, like they're just going to walk straight into Caitlyn Karma and get pounded. And instead they do the Tom Kench, which I agree, I thought was pretty useless. And on top of that, then they didn't respect the level 2 from the Callista Renata. And Dr. lost, I want to say, 50% of his health when he was still level 1 on the Caitlyn. So then he had to take an early base. They lost the waves.
And he flashed early, too. I think, like, level 2.
Yep. So it was just a disaster off that one, which was definitely a sad start to the game 4 for KT.
Yeah, I think it must be something with Peter, because they also did, earlier in the tournament, they did, like, a Caitlyn Braum lane, too. And so they weren't always, like, doing the Caitlyn lanes that you expect that are gonna punish, and definitely seemed like they did need it in this game. I also remembered this game. This is the game where they burn Owner's Flash level 1, but it doesn't end up getting punished. But then he has it back up later for the first dragon, and KT are just taking the dragon, and Owner's just like, no, because they're already down. It is match point for T1, and he just flashes over in and like passive auto with the Umbral steals the dragon, that plus his smite, and he just like puts his foot down. He's like, we're stacking dragons this game. I don't care what is going on. And that one was so close. It's just, I felt like that was such a big moment because they're facing elimination game, and just to like have that confidence, yeah, whatever, I'm just gonna flash for this, flip it, we're gonna get it. And then he like won every consecutive dragon smite after that as well. That moment I was like, Owner, it has ice in his veins. Like this guy, elimination match, and he's just like hits every single smite. I wish I could do that. I have like negative smite aura. I panic smite all the time. I panic smite way too early, way too late. But Owner, he's got it. That was crazy, that game to me.
Yeah, what I really liked about that smite, the flashing for the smite, was that his flash had been up for like 5 seconds when he did it, because he flashed level 1 from the invade, and then as soon as it came back up, he just flashed again to Steel Dragon. I remember looking, I was like, he's used flash twice, and it's not even 6 minutes into the game yet. He is just like spamming it off cooldown, which was sick to see. Because I think they could have killed BDD in that first 2v2 they had, where Faker ended up getting first blooded, but Trundle was able to pillar Nocturne off of BDD, so the fear couldn't connect, which ended up being pretty unlucky for T1.
Yeah,
but overall, still, it was such a close game. I don't know. I remember having feelings in that game 4 of kind of like the same thing I felt when I was watching KT versus Genji. Like, is T1 actually going to lose? Because it wasn't, as one-sided. Like, KT didn't get super high, but there were periods where it looked like, I was like, wow, T1's maybe not going to do it for once. But nope, that's just their thing. They have to make you think that, and then they always do it somehow. I don't get it.
Game 5 was still a fun game, but it was very much kind of like BDD versus the world. And that is the one. If Game 4 I didn't really like KT's draft, Game 5 I saw the draft and I was like, well, that's unwinnable. It just looked so bad to me. The blind Yorick, like there's a lot of picks in a blind Yorick that are super good. And if I recall correctly, they were already showing the Pantheon Galio when he picked Yorick. And so like I might have that wrong in my head,
so.
but I think that's what it was. That was my recollection.
I'm pretty sure the Pantheon Galio is one too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right.
So to me, that was fucking insane. Because like I almost don't even care what Doran is gonna play at that point. It's like, how are you ever side laning as Yorick? And if you can't side lane, what's the point of the champion, right? Like the only way you were gonna win at that point, I felt like before the Camille even got picked, and I think Camille is actually quite a hard matchup for Yorick because the cage you can just hookshot off the cage, right? So it's like usually that's how you win a lot of these melee matchups is you cage them in, you kind of just like beat them down. But it's like if he ever cages, he can hookshot away if it's bad, and he hookshot in if it's good. It just never works in your favor. And so once I saw them with that draft, I was like, I don't know how the York is ever going to do anything. Maybe Cuz can like hard camp this lane as Sejuani and like put the Camille in the dirt, and then maybe you can be useful in that way. And then when he dies first and then gets reganked, and then that time that Cuz tried to gank, he didn't actually cover him on the push out. Even though Doran was holding like 8 or 10 minions. To me, it seemed like the most obvious gank ever, where it's like Doran is low health and he's fighting you with like an 8 to 10 minion disadvantage. Like, of course the jungler's coming, right? And Cuz still didn't stay to help him push it out. At that point, I was like, well, this is just super over because Yorick can't split push, so he's going to do nothing. And then you have no real peel for this Ziggs Smolder comp against Galio, Pantheon, Leona, Camille. Like, it is just so hard to play carries into that kind of a composition unless you have something that's like fully designed to answer it, right? Like you have the Renata or you have, whatever, like full like counter engage stuff of your own. So I just thought that comp was so unplayable. It like built a little bit of hope when BDD got some of those shutdowns and got a big goal lead, but like still, man, like everything is going to get sent on your head in every fight.
Yeah, I kind of like the Tristana hover they showed right before switching to Smolder, because I totally agree with you on the Yorick. I think that pick, it was just dead in the water, and it's definitely one of the head scratchers, I think, as audience, because nobody except Flandre ever looks remotely good on Yorick. It looks like a free loss champion when people pick it, and everyone used Flandre's skin, like the goofy little pandas, but they don't do it like him. And we saw Keen on Yorick looking bit like a bot, and then obviously perfect. I mean, I really felt for him that game, because you're Game 5 World Finals and it's completely winnable, and you're just getting level 3 ganked and then ganked again and again, and he was just like 0-4-0 as the game was starting. I'm like, dude, that's gotta feel so bad as a player. I mean, because getting ganked feels bad enough, but like with the stakes being that high, and you're gonna just beat yourself up being like, oh, if only I didn't die to this. And you're like, owner, I hate you. You're so cheesy. Just go farm your camps. But I think the ganks they did on him were really cool. I don't remember if it was like the second or third one where I just thought the execution by T1 was super clean, because Perfect still had his flash up. And it was something like owner started the gank by using his empowered E for the move speed. And then him and Camille both flashed onto Yorick. And then Doran was able to save hookshot for after Yorick's flash, and they just barely killed him off of like an auto Q1 from Camille when it came back up. So I thought that was super cool, because I didn't think Perfect was going to die there, honestly. I thought it looked like he was too out of range, like he was healthy, he was far, but they just perfectly knew their limits on that setup, which is always the cool stuff at Worlds, right? It's just like seeing the best players know their limits perfectly. But I definitely felt for BDD, and I like T1's answer, because when I saw the Ziggs come out, this whole series I was kind of just waiting for BDD's Zoe, since in my mind she was kind of a sleeper pick of this Worlds. I don't think everyone prepared her, but I don't know. In solo queue, I'm traumatized with this champion. I feel like she does so much damage right now. It's kind of like the old Zoe that I think terrorized a lot of people from release. And BDD's really good at it, and they do this Zoe Ziggs comp. They've done it several times now. So when I saw the Ziggs first picked, I think taking Galio for Faker was a super smart answer, because like I don't think Zoe into Galio is particularly good. And even if the lane's okay, you have Zig Zoe trying to take out a Galio, it's just going to be good no matter what. So I thought that was really good. I feel like Trist would have been a pretty nice answer because having a huge knockback is one of the only things you can actually do to stop this Camille Galio combo. It's like if you knock Camille out of her ulti, it ends the ult. And aside from that, there's nothing you can do. But I was also getting nervous for T1 this game, though, because I feel like Doran started getting super nervous. And it was like he had a really solid lane phase. He was moving to a lot of fights. But then I think it started with one bad engage, the one kind of behind red buff, where it felt like he overforced it. And then Faker was slightly delayed on the Galio ult because I think he was trying to like get out of vision of York, so he didn't get stopped or something like that. And then after that, he just kind of kept forcing 4 or 5 bad engages in a row. He had the one you guys touched on earlier in the base where all of T1 was backing out and he just kind of sent it by himself and it wasn't really close to anything. So I was kind of freaking out for him, but it was cool seeing them get it back together. And then I really liked when they were walking up to the trophy after they had won, where you see Faker kind of like comforting Doran, patting him on the back, being like, "It's all good, dude," which is always cool to see.
Like, I got you. Don't worry. The 6 is for you.
Yeah, and it was so funny because the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm just like, Doran, please, man, like you don't need to force this. Just chill. And then T1 basically wins the fight without Doran doing anything. And then Doran ults Nautilus at the very end as the last guy alive. And then I like how Faker followed up with the Galio ult, even though it was completely unnecessary. He's just like, yeah, we did the combo. We did it. We won the game. It was like a cool teamwork moment.
Yeah. I think I definitely agree with both of you guys as far as that draft. I felt like KT just didn't have tools to live. I feel like they're always going to die there because you're running a poke comp into like one of the hardest hard engage comps that you can get. And hard engage is always like what you want to use when you're facing a poke comp. And yeah, Ziggs and Smolder, like you can get to some good poke range. Like we've seen Ziggs do a ton of damage at this tournament and Smolder will have a good lane at the beginning into Galio. But how do you ever live on the map after that? Like you guys are saying, with no peel and no kind of answers to Camille, Pantheon, Galio, Leona, like that is Omega lockdown. So I felt like even though when BDD was getting ahead, I was like, I'm going with it because like maybe their BDD's just got some mega like crazy game in him or something. But I felt like that Smolder was always going to be like a sack of gold that's going to get deleted at some point. And he really did try. He had some really clutch ones. And when T1 went for like their split engage and they tower dove and he lived, maybe there was a little bit of hope there. But yeah, it did seem like in Fearless, the last game in Fearless, T1 definitely had the advantage there. And I know that Perfect is a player that people did have some champion pool concerns about at the beginning. So maybe that had a bit of a factor into it, but very clearly play also. There was that play where like Peter Nautilus was just like walking through the Misfortune Ultimate.
Oh yeah,
the Otacon Tribe Rush.
He was taking a bath in that one. I when I saw that, I feel like he must have been not looking at his character, trying to make sure his teammates were close enough to follow up with this engage or something, because that was definitely just like a oops. Well, I mean, it's a super high pressure situation, right? Like people are going to make mistakes, but he definitely just was not having very strong self-preservation instincts on that one, because he just walked through the entire thing. He just got one shot. It was pretty rough.
To me, at that point, I just thought that was like a panic thing, right? Where he's like, okay, I need to engage. Oh, crap, I'm dying. Oh, wait, I'm going to die anyway. I need to do, you know what I mean? It's like one of those things where it was like decision paralysis and obviously looked rough. But yeah, it definitely wasn't just draft. I mean, it's never just draft. If I recall, I don't think Perfect had any ward even in the river. I don't think he'd used his first ward when he died to that first gank. So like maybe if he had actually warded Pixel, he could have lived the first gank. Then maybe it doesn't snowball in the same way. Obviously, play is always going to be a big thing. I mean, Smolder, BDD did the build that I like, where it's like if you play against heavy dive, Zonia's is actually totally viable. You can build it kind of like a Kaisaken late. He did get his Seekers. I mean, the game was over by then, essentially. But the problem is against this kind of comp, you can press Zonias when Camille Galio press ult, but then you come out of Zonias and Galio is channeling taunt. So it's like, how are you ever getting away, you know? And Pantheon's standing on your head and all this stuff. And I just don't feel like they had enough counter engage to ever actually punish that dive. So that's the thing that kind of like made it so I wasn't sold on it. Smolder is kind of like the pick I expected when it was that final pick. I was trying to think through. I was like, well, they need AD. They have Zig. Smolder's good in Galio. That's probably what going to go for. But I just felt like the draft was already ruined when they picked York. I'm not going to lie. You know, I don't know what the best pick in that situation would be. But I mean, it's hard because a lot of the stuff you can think of, it's like, are you comfortable enough to play it in Game 5 of the World Finals, right? You know, it's like maybe you play a bruiser, like you play set or something like that, and you try to, you know, peel in that way or have a more kind of like bully lane or whatever. But obviously, it's just so hard in a final game of a series. And I feel like KT had a really fantastic tournament. Like they did so much better than anyone expected. And yeah, I mean, Peter had some funny moments and whatnot, but like I feel as though he played a really, really good tournament. And super impressed me, especially compared to my expectations for them. Where I honestly didn't even really think they were going to make Worlds. I thought you know Damwon or someone might have actually taken the spot originally, and then they had that big you know Genji upset and all this stuff. I thought they might have gotten knocked out in the lower bracket and not actually even made it. So the fact that not only they made it, and then everyone in the LCK was telling me this is by far the weakest team, expect nothing. And then I was talking to some pros in early on in Worlds who were scrimming. And I think Inspired even said this publicly. He was like saying that he hoped that they got to play KT because KT is like by far the weakest Asian team. And that would be like the most beatable Asian team, right? Not that he wasn't like talking shit or anything. It was just like, hey, based on their scrims. So I'd been hearing that kind of stuff from everyone. So the fact that they actually made it to World Finals, I thought was pretty fantastic. I think as a pro, it's impossible to look at it in that way. You know, it's going to be heartbreaking when you've worked towards this, you know, for your whole life for a lot of them, and especially for the guys who have been around for a super long time and trying. Because it's hard to feel like this might not be your best opportunity ever, and it slipped away.
I do think especially BDD and Cuz looked insane. So I hope that getting this close is more of a like refueling and energizing and spurs them on to further greatness than a like soul crushing, man, we got so close, even though it's really hard, especially immediately right after in the moment, to feel like, wow, we got so close. And obviously they're all going to feel sad, but holy moly, those two especially just playing out of their minds. I felt like the beginning of the series, I felt like Cuz was just destroying, popping off, like could almost do no wrong. Like Locks in the Mundo is like walking everywhere, stealing dragons, chasing down kills, and those two especially. But you also mentioned the other, the players that people didn't have expectations for, because people had expectations for BDD and Cuz. Mm-hmm. But for Perfect as well as Peter and Docdom, all these players that have been benched before, always really admire players that can work through being demoted to challengers, and make their way back up to the biggest stage. And players that can get subbed out and have that drive to really bring it once again at one of these big events. So hopefully these guys all will be kind of spurred on to further greatness, and you get to see some more success from them. But on the other side, we got to talk about the T1 storytelling here, and the three-peat is real. I mean, it's actually just insane. It was cool to see like their reactions afterwards too. It looks like they're just giggling and having fun up there, and it's like multiple times this tournament T1 could have been eliminated. They were also an elimination point versus AL, and they're just like owners throwing down his literal first time of this version of Mundo, because fans actually went back. Or I don't know if they like scoured all of his accounts or whatever, but anyways, they said they found his last Mundo game from his solo queue accounts was 2017, which was pre-WeWork Mundo. And so then we got
8
the voice
years ago is
listen-in.
crazy.
Yeah, we got the voice comm listen-ins, and Faker's like telling him the abilities, and Coach Tom is telling him with the clear, and owner's like, okay, and they slam that in a World's elimination game. It's just like, these guys trust each other so much. They're having so much fun. You know, they're just like winning worlds after worlds after worlds.
I think for me, I felt like it was over in game 4. It was, I think, even before T1 started winning. I think they were behind, but there was that dragon fight where afterwards it kind of showed Faker's player camera and he was just laughing. I was like, oh yeah, they're done, because I don't know, he's such a crazy guy. He just, somehow in the highest stakes match ever, when you're down to elimination match, it's not even like game 5. It's not like you have to win this match to stay alive, and he's just laughing while the game is not going their way. Like that is unreal. I don't know how you can do that. It's just,
I mean, they've just been in those situations so many times, right? That I feel like he has comfort in these situations where people would be just like pissing their pants, right? Like they'd just be so nervous, so scared. I mean, this was his 8th World Finals. That's insane. He's won 6 of them, right? Like he's 6 for 8 on winning the World Finals. Like what? It's just so nuts. And I feel like, I know I've probably touched on this on other episodes, but to me it's just so mind blowing because Owner, Guma, and Keria to me still feel like new era players, right? And they are, compared to like Faker and some of these people who have been around forever, rookie, whatever. But obviously they've been around for a while now. But at this point, they've accomplished so much in such a little time that it's just wild, right? Like, I feel like even if you're one of the people who really, really prioritizes just accomplishments, like as far as trophies and things like that, for the kind of like GOAT discussions for the roles, it's pretty hard to start arguing against some of these players, right? Like these are some of the greatest players of all time in their role. It's not just Faker alone at the top. To me, Keria really was warping games and warping pick and ban, right? Because everyone's like, well, you can't give him Bard. That felt like that was just the tournament started that way. And then he had so many insane Nico games where he was pulling off these crazy plays that were really game changing. When like against AL, this clone trick where he's juking with his clone back in the brush and draws Leona ult, and then just standing still on his actual character while they're hitting him, not reacting, and then they just walk up on him. Forces flash off LeBlanc, catches the Corki, wins the game basically off that play. Then against TES, he's doing this wolf play where the wolves don't show up on vision, so they don't see him crossing through mid on the minimap, and he drops a flank ward, forces out Jackie Love's Valk by cloning at him, and then wraps around behind him and finds the engage, and they like win that off that too. And so it's like, now you're going into finals, you like have to buy him Bard, you can't let him have Nico, you can't let him have all these picks. Like, he just warps the game when Carrie's playing at his best. And it's very similar to me. It's not just this meta, because when I think about the double range, like ADC meta bot lane, right? Keria was completely warping games, playing whether it was like the Caitlyn support or the Kalista. I remember even played Twitch and LCK one time, played all kinds of random stuff. And so it's like he is so game warping that, you have to be talking about him as one of the best ever, if not the best ever. And Owner, to me, it's like when people talk about the struggles of T1 and like, they're not that great regionally because they go these up and downs and players are struggling and blah, blah, blah. Owner is like the only one that doesn't seem to, right? Like he just seems to be so consistent and always seems to step up in these big moments. Like you touched on the Nocturne game and whatnot. And it's like, he's always stalwart for them regionally. He's always stepping up in these big moments. It's just crazy, right? And you don't want to be like overreacting. It's like, oh, the best team means it's the best player in every role, right? But they're making some insane arguments to themselves. Like no one had ever three-peated. The only team that ever done a two-peat was Faker's old roster, right? With SKT T1. So, I mean, just the stuff that these guys have accomplished, that core 4, obviously Dorian was added this year, but the core 4 straight world finals and 3 world championships in a row. Like, what the hell? It's just crazy.
Yeah, and I touched on it a little bit in our last episode, but for me, the part that really I just can't get over is how they don't look dominant all year and then still manage to win worlds. It's like, they're not dominant in LCK. They're good, but they're usually losing to Genji in the finals and whatnot. But then somehow at worlds, they just are a completely different team. And, it's just that X factor. They're just, I think, super calm under the insane pressure, because playing at worlds is actually an unreal level of pressure, which is why I think with a lot of players, you do see them looking like not their best, because It was a while ago, but I've played there a decent amount of times, and I think the big difference is that through the whole year, you're kind of working up till Worlds, right? It'll be like when you're in scrims, you're thinking, okay, it's fine to make this mistake. We're going to learn from it on our goal of getting to Worlds. And then, you get to Worlds and you're practicing and you're like, okay, it's fine. Like we're learning for Worlds. But then when you're actually playing, like you don't have that anymore. You're not like, okay, we're learning this for World. No, that is the thing. And so there's so much more pressure and the stakes feel so much heavier. And somehow they just find a way to laugh while playing at World still. Like, it's just, that is not easy to do. Not at all. So it's super cool. I mean, we're just witnessing history, right? Like, I always think about that with Faker. I'm thinking, probably for the rest of my life, we might not see someone that dominant in any field, whether it's sports, other games, whatnot. So I'm all for it. I love seeing him do well. I think it'll just keep making the story better and like more legendary when you look back at it and be like, damn, we got to see that live, right?
Are you ever going to get tired of seeing it if it's like T1 with the 10 Pete? Is that going to be as epic? Because like where does this core roster stop? To your point, like this year they were also second place at MSI, so it's not just like, oh yeah, we just win Worlds just like that. They also were like heavily pressuring MSI as well and stuff, and it's just like, man, these guys, this team is so good. And even with like some of these plays from like Doran and stuff that you're talking about that look really funny, they're champions once again. All right, what's your number? How many okay, is the maximum?
So I think for me, I don't know if there's necessarily a number. I understand the criticism. People will be like, oh, it's so boring, it's the same thing over and over, T1's winning. But for me, I'm definitely here for it. I want them to go as long as they can, and so they always make it interesting. I think if they were coming in and having like, I think if they had Gen G's playstyle and story, it wouldn't be as interesting because of the way Gen G is in LCK. They play this like very slow, controlled style, low kill count games. Obviously, they're very good. It's not easy to just like win all your lanes like that. But I think if they had this like, okay, we're just always going to win and our games are not going to be that interesting. Obviously, like, it's kind of a generalization. They do have fun games, obviously. But I think because the way T1 does it, where they come in looking like underdogs every time. They're fourth seed. They barely qualified for Worlds. They are playing in play-ins, and they just manage to do some crazy magic every single time. For me, I'm not going to get bored of it. But also, like I mentioned earlier, I just think it's super cool getting to witness Faker in real time, because there will be a time when he's not playing anymore, and it's going to be the saddest day for every former and current League player ever, right? I don't like thinking about it, but that's just the reality of the situation. So I'm definitely going to enjoy it for as long as it lasts. And I think I'll always be rooting for him because it's cool. He's like the main character of League. And he reps it well.
Yeah. I mean, I have so much respect for people who can be that consistent, right? Like when I was a pro in WoW, I always had so much respect and for the games that I watched, for the people that could consistently perform at a really high level. Some players, like any pro, even the pro that you think is the worst, can like be really, really good, right, on their day and in their moment. They can have these incredible performances, but to even have a peak like one time to get to the World Finals is so insanely hard in League of Legends. Like, it's so competitive. There's so many pros that are doing it. It's such a business that there's so much behind it, right? And so to me, it's always just been so insane that he's able to do it for year after year after year after year. Like, he's gone to 10 world championships. He's been playing for 12, 13 years now at this point. And to maintain that level of dominance for so long, I'm just like blown away by that level of consistency and what that takes. As far as like, if I could pick and choose how many they're going to win, I would like to see the LPL win, because I want it to be, back to it feeling like it really is this kind of like back and forth, this push and pull. Because right now, I've been feeling more and more, especially this year, that the LCK, is just like clearly better. Because like coming into Worlds this year, I wasn't even really thinking about KT as a top team. I'm not going to lie, as far as like a world championship winner. I thought they could make top 8 and stuff, but I didn't think they would be in it to win worlds. But I was thinking 3 of the top 4 teams would be LCK, right? And that did end up being the case. It just was KT instead of HLE that ended up getting up there. But to me, it's like, yeah, they arguably, had three of the best. Well, they had 3 of the best 4. They maybe could have even theoretically had 4 of the best 4 if HLE didn't have to play against another LCK team. LCK was the only LCK teams knocked out LCK teams, right? So it's like, to me, I love when I go into an international competition and you really don't know who's going to win, right? And when there is like a lot of discussion and argument of like, no, this team's better, no, this team's better. And I felt like this year at Worlds, everyone was kind of like, yeah, it should be one of the LCK teams that wins, right? And so, like, if I could just pick and choose, I would say I would love to see an LPL team kind of get back on top and to see that rivalry kind of reignited.
Yeah, I mean, AL were 1 game away this year. BLG 1 game away last year from knocking out T1. Of course, AL still would have had more work to do this year if they had even been able to accomplish that. But I definitely agree, because you want to see both sides need to be competitive for there to be entertaining competition. We are going to talk about some more North American news as well, though, right after this quick break.
Ready, set, go!
I'm at 47%.
Oh, I'm on 63%.
Man, I'm at 50%. Boom! 80%. Winner! The Kia EV9 can go from 10% charge to 80% charge in just 24 minutes with DC fast charging.
Welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia. It's time to talk a little bit of, not LTA, it's time to talk some LCS, baby. The new format got announced, so pretty excited for it. It's going to be a lock-in tournament instead of like the split 1, split 2, split 3 thing. We're going to have it's all going to be best ofs. It's all going to be fearless. They're even adding like kind of like a little Swiss format, like a mini Swiss format for the tournament, which sounds really, really cool. And I know that the whole year long, it's all going to be best ofs. It's all going to be fearless. There's way more games than previous. I think for lock-in, it's like 50% more games. I think the other splits have more games as well. So they're trying to make the format simple, which people asked for. Obviously, a lot of people felt that the formats this year, were too complex and too kind of hard to track. So it's going to be simple. There's going to be a lot more games. We're back to LCS branding, only best ofs, all fearless. So I'm super, super happy with the changes. It seems really exciting to me. And yeah, honestly, I'm kind of just excited to see what all the roster shakeups are going to be too. Because like, it seems like FlyQuest is pretty much like breaking up. Busio got announced that it's not like official, but probably going to KC, which I'm not gonna lie, I felt super, super sad when I read that. But Inspired is also, again, not officially announced, but rumored to be going to Lion. Obviously 100 Thieves is just gone as an org, so they're all splitting up to different things. Quid apparently is going to be going to TL and so on. So there's going to be all these different teams, and I feel like maybe you'll have a different year that you're thinking of, but to me, this feels like the biggest shakeup at the top that we've ever had, right? Because 100 Thieves is just gone. FlyQuest's rosters completely seem like they're blown apart. And yeah, I mean, it's just like those are 2 of our top 3 teams right there, right? And Loki's gone as well, citing family reasons for going back. So that's gonna be a big shakeup for C9 as well. So like, I honestly just have no clue who the best teams are gonna be or what the rosters are gonna look like. So I'm really excited to get more into the offseason and be like, all right, what are the rosters going to be? What's this going to look like?
Yeah, it's like you said, a ton of shakeups this year, and I don't even know who a lot of these teams are going to pick up. This is one of the first times where it feels like there's almost more available slots than top candidates, because a lot of the best players have either stop playing or some of them keep getting stolen by Europe. Not sure why they don't just get their own guys, but whatever.
Time to saddle up, Meteos, get back in there.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but it will be exciting. I think it could be an opportunity for some new faces to show up. Maybe there's some tier 2 players that could get their debut and look really good. So I think there's a lot up in the air, and it's not super clear which players or even teams are going to be that good because, like you said with FlyQuest, I'm trying to think the last time we had a situation like this where the top team for so long basically just completely disbands, right? I don't know if any of the FlyQuest members are staying on. It's all just rumors, but I think they announced like Whippo's gone, seems like Inspired's gone, Busio's gone. That's basically not the same team, right? So it's going to be super, super weird. I mean, C9 had their struggles this last year, and it really sucks with Loki's situation. I don't know all the details. I heard it, like you said, it was family stuff. It wasn't anything performance related. I don't think the team or him wanted this to happen, but it's just kind of life. He had to stay in Korea. So there's going to be an opening there for somebody to come in. And yeah, I think it's kind of a huge opportunity for other teams too, not necessarily the top teams that we've known, because I don't know, when did FlyQuest start getting really good? Because before that, they were never a top team, and then just a few years ago, they became one. So I think it's a huge opportunity for other teams. There's also Sentinels coming in, and I don't know if you guys have heard anything about the roster, but I haven't heard really anything at all about who Sentinels are going to get. So
I just
a lot to
remember
look forward to.
Yeah, I just remember when we had the GM on, and he was talking about not like over investing in the first year. So I imagine they're going to be looking for those like new generation or next generation players. Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to see what teams are going to field, because like you're saying, this is an unprecedented like opening of the doors, I feel like, because usually it is so hard to dethrone and de-seat some of the players that are at the top. But all these different reasons, with Loki leaving as well, River going to military service, Busio going over to Europe, most probably. It's like there's a lot of opportunities where a lot of these top players, those guys were not going to get replaced if they didn't just leave for all these different reasons. So it's very interesting. I remember on the last episode, we were talking about, TL Super Team and stuff. And that's also not happening because Inspired has chose Lion. But now the people are talking about Lion super teams. And they're talking about the 80 carries that Lion are like talking to and like maybe importing and stuff, like Diablo and like all these other ways. People are like, you should get Viper. And I was like, they should get Viper. Go ahead and do that. That is probably not going to happen. But, whatever type of stuff, teams end up getting.
Diablo, that kid is ridiculous. Watching their games, oh my god, that was at a time when Corki was losing every single game in pro, but then you watched him play Corki, and it did not look like the same champion. He had some kind of damage boost just activated on his character, and kind of everything he touched. So that would be sick if he came over. Obviously, I have no idea who's going to show up, but yeah, I mean, dude, Inspired has a great track record. Pretty much every team he touches becomes very strong. So if he's going to Lion, probably is going to be a good team, I would guess, right? It would be extremely shocking if he went there and then played with Saint, who's... I think Saint has been extremely good individually since he's been here in the LCS or LTA. It's going to be weird switching back, but not really. Anyway, he's been really good individually, not necessarily on the best team. Not necessarily on the best team. And sometimes it looks like he doesn't always have a lot of trust in his teammates, like having to try to overplay situations, bite off more than he can. So if he's with a really solid team, I think obviously he'll look a lot better.
Yeah,
so, I mean, lots to look forward to.
Should be interesting. Saint, I know, is rumored to be staying there. Inspired is going to be joining. Even some of the teams that like are kind of like considered to be bottom teams, I know a lot of people were excited about. Dingtoss, I think, picked up Jonathan, who used to be the former like CLG / Energy GM. And then they hired Swiffer, I think it was. Yeah, he's supposed to be their head coach. So people were really happy about that. Golden Glue got signed somewhere. I want to say it was Sentinels, but I'm trying to find it. And I can't find the leak. I don't remember. But I remember seeing something about that. I think it was. Excuse me if I'm wrong. But there had been a number of different kind of like rumors of coaches moving around and joining different things. Spooks, I think, was going to be joining TL as an assistant coach, which I think is pretty cool.
Going with Quid.
Yep, going with Quid, and another Aussie over on TL with Spawn. So that's really really cool. And yeah, there's a lot more to be done. And kind of like you guys were saying, I feel like if you're a team that is usually kind of like on the outside looking in as far as the Worlds conversation, you've got to be really excited, right? 2 of the 3 Worlds teams for NA are basically gone, right? 100 Thieves is gone, and FlyQuest is basically gone, or at least FlyQuest as we knew it is gone, right? So you have to be thinking like, damn, like there's a real chance if we can get something good going to be able to make it to Worlds, and to be able to be in that international competition, whether it's for First Stand or MSI or Worlds. And I feel like even for teams like Disguise, right, who like got a lot better in that last split, you have to be thinking, hey, like maybe we could do it. Maybe we could be one of those teams to push to the top of the table. So I feel like it's a really cool opportunity for some of those teams to really kind of try to take advantage of all this chaos at the top of the table and all these roster changes that are coming through, which is just like, it's really rare to have that kind of a chance. You know, usually you feel like you're going into the season and there's a lot more stability at the top usually than there is at the bottom, right? Because they had success.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like, especially with Fearless, the teams that have been together longer and kind of know each other and have that trust are going to have the advantage. That's what I would imagine anyway, because, you know, you have to be able to play so many different styles together. So I definitely would put a lot of value in like that chemistry and synergy between players. So yeah, maybe it's going to be their year.
Well, that is going to do it for the dive driven by Kia. We're going to wrap this a little bit early so we can maybe get a chance to eat, to maybe get a chance to sleep before we have our journey back. But shout out to all the fans who have been with us all year long. This is obviously our last one for the year. And shout out to everyone who was tuning in throughout Worlds. I know a ton of y'all were showing up, and watching the Worlds episodes. So hopefully we will see you all back next year. January 24th, LCS is going to be back. Yes, that sounds so good to say. Lock-in is going to be beginning on January 24th. It should be a lot of fun. We're going to have way more games than we had in our Split 1 format this time around. All best ofs, all fearless. Should be a banger. We'll hopefully see you all there.